America's urban landscape is blighted by a growing crisis, the erosion of civility. This decay is most apparent in cities like Chicago and New York, where the social contract, the delicate balance of rights and responsibilities, is fraying at an alarming rate. Public safety, once a given, is now a luxury many cannot afford. Open displays of lawlessness are met with indifference, breeding an environment where fear thrives and hope dwindles. Take Chicago, once a beacon of Midwestern grit, now synonymous with rampant violence. In 2023 alone, the city recorded over 600 homicides, a grim statistic that barely scratches the surface of the daily trauma endured by its citizens. Over 2,500 shootings tore through communities, leaving physical and emotional scars that may never fully heal. New York, despite its image as a global metropolis, fares no better. Felony assaults have skyrocketed by 22% in just 2 years, a stark reminder that even in the city that never sleeps, danger lurks around every corner. The consequences of this decline are devastating and far-reaching. Businesses shutter their windows, driven out by relentless theft and the fear that hangs heavy in the air. Families, once hopeful for a brighter future, flee their homes, desperate for a safe haven that seems increasingly elusive. The most tragic victims are often the most vulnerable. Communities of color, trapped in a cycle of violence and neglect, their cries for help drowned out by the cacophony of indifference. The statistics paint a grim picture, but numbers can only tell part of the story. To truly grasp the extent of the crisis, one must look beyond the headlines and witness the fear in the eyes of shopkeepers, the despair of mothers who have lost children, the shattered dreams of those who dared to believe in the promise of a just and equitable society. The disintegration of civility in America's cities is not a spontaneous phenomenon. It is the direct result of deliberate policy choices and a dangerous shift in societal attitudes towards crime and punishment. A culture of impunity has taken root, fueled by a misguided belief that leniency, even towards repeat offenders, is a form of compassion. Nowhere is this more evident than in the rise of progressive prosecutors, many bankrolled by wealthy ideologues with no real stake in the communities they claim to champion. These prosecutors, blinded by their own righteousness, have implemented policies that prioritize the well-being of criminals over the safety and security of law-abiding citizens. No cash bail laws, a hallmark of this soft-on-crime approach, have transformed our justice system into a revolving door, releasing dangerous individuals back onto the streets to re-offend with impunity. The consequences of this misguided approach are as predictable as they are devastating. Police officers, demoralized by a system that undermines their efforts, become increasingly hesitant to enforce the law, further emboldening criminals. Communities, once vibrant hubs of activity, transform into battlegrounds where fear reigns supreme. The very fabric of society, woven together by the threads of trust and shared values, begins to unravel. This is not justice. It is a perverse form of social engineering that sacrifices the safety and well-being of the many on the altar of misguided compassion for the few. It is a dangerous experiment that has failed spectacularly, leaving behind a trail of broken lives and shattered communities. The erosion of civility in our cities is not merely a symptom of failed policies. It is a reflection of a deeper moral decay that has infected the very soul of our nation. We have abandoned the timeless principles that once served as the bedrock of a just and ordered society, opting instead for a culture of relativism and moral ambiguity. The Ten Commandments, once revered as a universal code of conduct, have been relegated to the dustbin of history, dismissed as archaic and irrelevant in our enlightened age. Yet these commandments, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness, are not mere religious pronouncements. They are the foundational principles upon which any civilized society must be built. Without a shared moral compass, without a clear understanding of right and wrong, society devolves into chaos. The strong prey on the weak, the innocent are sacrificed on the altar of expediency, and the very notion of justice becomes a cruel joke. We have replaced personal responsibility with a culture of victimhood, accountability with excuses, and consequences with endless second chances. The result is a society teetering on the brink, a society where the pursuit of individual gratification trumps the common good, where the ends justify the means, and where the very notion of truth has become fluid and subjective. Reversing the tide of incivility that threatens to engulf our nation requires a multifaceted approach, one that addresses not only the symptoms, but also the root causes of this societal malaise. It demands a return to common sense, a reaffirmation of basic moral principles, and a willingness to confront difficult truths. First and foremost, we must restore the rule of law. This begins with empowering law enforcement to do their jobs effectively and without fear of reprisal. We must abandon the dangerous fantasy that criminals are merely victims of circumstance and embrace the reality that actions have consequences. No cash bail policies must be repealed, and prosecutors who prioritize ideology over justice must be held accountable. Second, we must address the mental health crisis that plagues our nation. The revolving door of arrest and release for mentally ill individuals does nothing to address the underlying issues and only serves to endanger both the individuals and the community at large. We need a system that provides compassionate yet effective treatment, ensuring that those in need receive the care they deserve while protecting the public from harm. Third, we must revive the importance of moral and civic education. Our children are not born with an innate understanding of right and wrong, of their rights and responsibilities as citizens. These values must be instilled at an early age, both at home and in the classroom. We must teach our children the importance of respect, empathy, honesty, and personal responsibility, the very virtues that form the foundation of a just and civil society. Restoring civility in America is not a task for the faint of heart. It demands courage, conviction, and an unwavering commitment to the principles that have made our nation great. It requires us to confront uncomfortable truths, to challenge the status quo, and to demand better from our elected officials and from ourselves. The time for complacency is long past. The future of our nation, the very soul of America, hangs in the balance.